What's going on, guys? We got the chapter 259 JJK spoiler leaks, and it is amazing. Somebody dies and somebody returns.
Another one.
So in the last chapter, Sukuna opened up his domain and he decided to finally use that fire curse technique that we have been waiting for him to use. And we pretty much assumed, just like he did in Shibuya, he was going to decimate everything. Unfortunately, that's not exactly where the chapter picks up. We actually go back to a flashback of Yuji, Choso, and Kamo, with Yuji asking Choso to teach convergence, but Choso isn't really a good teacher, and Kamo explains how blood manipulation and convergence works. So we've seen Yuji kind of use some of the blood manipulation techniques over the course of this fight against Sukuna. He's definitely learned a lot as far as blood manipulation. I don't think we have seen him use convergence, but I'm sure he's not far behind when it comes to that. He's probably had a little bit of training on it. And this flashback is basically just showing us that he's trying to learn all he can for this fight that they're about to get into. So Choso says he can't teach Yuji how to use the supernova attack, but Kamo rebukes Choso's suggestion and says Yuji should learn blood manipulation only to know how to stop bleeding and suturing. But I definitely agree that learning bleeding and suturing, like how to stop that, is definitely a good technique, especially going into a fight with a guy who can cut you with invisible blades, basically. Choso gets sad at Pouts for not being able to teach Yuji. It's also saying here that Yuji reveals the second person he swapped to train with was Yuta Akotsu, so that would be pretty interesting to see if he's learned any techniques from him. I don't think it'll be a curse technique, but because the narrator did say he had 2 curse techniques currently. So who knows what he learned from him. I'm sure he learned something useful, and then we may see that within the next chapter or 2. We did get a really nice double spread of Sukuna using the flames, and the narration says, only by going through the cooking process of both dismantle and cleave will the door to Camino open. It lacks the speed relative to its fire and has a near effective range. To resolve these issues, Sukuna imposed a binding vow upon himself. Of course, that's what Sukuna does, imposes binding vows on top of binding vows on top of binding vows. Urarame says, it's our win. The narrator continues to explain that Camino's heat results in decompression and overpressure, leading to the death of living beings inside the domain. This is Ryumen Sukuna's ultimate technique that slaughtered Maharaga in one strike. So, yeah, we saw that in Shibuya, in the manga and in the anime in this last season that just came out. He decimated pretty much everything, including Maharaga. It's a very powerful technique we've seen. I don't like this panel because I'm tired of seeing Urarame and Hikari together, still fighting for the longest fucking time. Their fight is almost as long, if not longer, than Goku versus Frieza in the Namek Saga.
Many months later.
I just wish it was hurry up. Hikari needs to be over there helping the boys and the girls, and just, he needs to be over there with them, not fucking around with Urarame. And are we ever gonna get a conclusion to this fight? Are we gonna see somebody die off panel, or are we gonna actually go into the fight and see what happens there? I don't know, maybe Gege just doesn't feel like explaining Hikari's curse technique again. I don't know. But yeah, you're probably, I would assume everybody's kind of like me in this thought, like, he needs to be done with Urarame. He's been there for a long time.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The narrator explains that during Gojo's fight, Sukuna had to repeatedly change the specification of his domain. Yeah, when they were fighting, they kept changing the size and the shape and the density and then like the specifications of the one hit, turning it on and off, stuff like that. Narrowing its effective range, due to which Sukuna deemed insufficient to unleash Camino. Thus, Sukuna had to seal it during his fight with Gojo. So I guess that explains why he didn't use a fire arrow then. I think everybody and their mom was wondering why he hadn't used it, because we saw him use it against Maharaga and Jogo, and obviously in this fight it would have been a good weapon and technique to unleash onto Gojo. So he sealed it because of specifications kept changing. So he sealed it because they kept changing the specifications of the domain expansions. And I guess that makes sense. It's giving us a little bit of a clearance up on that. Before the flames could hit Yuji, Choso sacrifices himself and makes a barrier around him to protect Yuji inside. Choso slowly dies as he says, "I'm sorry for being useless during our training." Yeah, this paneling is honestly really depressing. I like Choso a lot. Yeah, this sucks. Seeing him being burned to a crisp and basically turning to dust. And Yuji's expressions, it's really disheartening right now to see Yuji go through so much. All because of Sukuna too. This guy needs to go.
You can't keep getting away with it!
This is very sad paneling. Choso says Yuji. Yuji says, "Choso, why?" Yuji says, "No." Choso says, "I'm sorry for being useless during our training. I'm the type who does it on instinct." Paneling of them at the tables, except the chairs. 2 of the chairs are empty, and it's Yuji just looking at Choso, and they're just having this conversation. It's really depressing. Yuji and Choso are in that imaginary world, and Choso compliments Yuji for learning reverse curse technique faster than him. Yuji says it's due to Sukuna using his body, but Choso says it's okay. Little brothers are meant to surpass their elder brothers. Yuji scolds Choso and says, "You can't just disappear." Choso says, "Right. I need to apologize to Sukuna too." Choso says, "Yuji, I'm sorry for leaving you alone again." Yuji says, "You are always by my side when times were the toughest. That's more than enough." Fuck, this is depressing. And then we see Choso, he's kind of like shocked, and then we see the death painting wounds in those jars again, and they're calling out to him. Eso says, "Big bro, are you there?" Choso says, "I'm right here." Ketchuzu says, "Brother, I'm cold." Choso says, "It's alright, let's talk." Choso says, "If we talk, we'll forget about the cold." Then Choso says, "The 150 years we experienced was only a few days for Yuji." Man, this is depressing. Gege is, honestly, he has to be taking a lot of happiness from this. Like, he has to be happy doing this stuff. There's no way this guy is writing it like this and trying to tear up our insides by killing all these characters that we love. He's getting enjoyment out of this. He's trolling. Back to reality, Choso departs with final words. "Thank you, Yuji, for becoming my brother." Yuji says goodbye to Choso as he finally says, "Thank you, Aniki," which it says in parentheses, "big brother." I'm guessing that's what that means. As everything's crumbling around him, smoke, fire, Yuji helplessly asks, "Guys, someone." He's all by himself, but there's a figure in the flames coming out. Guess who it is? The narrator says Yuji convinced himself he was a cog. No matter what happened, he was meant to fulfill his role. But as the scorched earth's heat begins to push his way, it shook the foundation of his resolve. The resolve to pay his brother, who had sacrificed his life to protect. Yuji hopelessly sees Sukuna coming towards him. But our character returns. Todo once again arrives at the battlefield to help his brother. He appears right next to Yuji. His hand is bandaged up and he looks ready to go. I'm wondering how good he's going to be with just one hand. I love Todo. I think he's going to be great, but this is going to be interesting to see because his hand still looks injured, so I'm curious how that's going to work with his boogie woogie. Flashback. Todo and Mei plan on how to rescue people trapped inside Sukuna's domain. By using Mei's crow and Todo's boogie woogie, they can get people outside. Since Sukuna's domain instantly kills, Todo can't guarantee their lives, but it's worth a try. That seems like a pretty solid plan. Yeah, with a sure hit, I don't know how that'll work. Somebody being teleported almost instantly out too. That's if it is even instant. It's gonna be very curious. I'm hoping everybody did survive. There were no casualties. We've lost a lot already. I'm especially hoping for Maki to still be alive. She's my favorite, and she's already been burned once. You can't do this again to her, Gege. Mei says since Todo will be outside of Sukuna's domain, he has to expand his curse technique's range by a lot. So she asks if he can really do it with those arms. Todo says he's not really sure of succeeding, but he says he can feel the heartbeat of Boogie Woogie. That's right, Todo. But Todo says that he can't let Yuji know of this plan. Yuji and Sukuna were 2 souls in 1 body. Even though it's in the past, that connection itself is strong. So there's a possibility of their plan unknowingly being spilled to Sukuna. The narrator says even Todo was uncertain of his enemy's safety and couldn't manage to move Choso and Yuji outside, because both of them were right in the middle of the domain. He couldn't explain this to Yuji, so Todo tries to encourage him by saying, "I'm sorry, brother, but the other sorcerers probably are alright. Yuji tries to seal his resolve by thinking other sorcerers are probably alright, and he has to believe in Todo for now. Yuji and Todo rush towards Sukuna as the narrator reveals that Sukuna is now at a state where it's difficult to use his curse technique after the domain expansion. Editors comment at the end, the path to victory linked by the brothers. No break next week, let's fucking go. Todo is back. Of course, Sukuna is still a really good fighter in terms of just hand to hand. So even with the Boogie Woogie, if Todo can still do it and how fast he can do it, that'll be interesting to see how they incorporate that. Because I mean, obviously they did really good against Mahito and the plant curse. I can't remember her name. But yeah, I mean, this should be interesting. I'm hoping this is just as good a fight as it was then, especially with Yuji being pretty good at landing those black flashes. If he can get some teleported black flashes in, that would be amazing. But Sukuna always whips out the Uno reverse, so I'm not going to get my hopes up. Honestly, I probably will never get my hopes up again. I will never believe in anything again when it comes to this manga. I'm just going to keep reading and seeing what happens. Because I mean, you just never know. Somebody's gonna die. Somebody's gonna show up. I mean, honestly, it's just the only person who knows is the person who's writing it, and I feel like there's probably gonna be more heartbreak down the line. So yeah, I'm gonna go drink a cold glass of some sort of alcohol now. Thanks, JJK. You ruined my Thursday morning. If you guys like this video, please leave it a like. And maybe give a comment on what you think about this week's upcoming chapter. If you have any guesses on what you think might happen, are you like me? Or are you kind of just ready to give up because you have no idea of what's gonna happen and you're tired of seeing people killed? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Please leave a like and a subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.